we're hearing a lot of forecasts. It's going to be, the best holiday season since before the pandemic. A lot of people are very optimistic, but I know you're coming here to play the Grinch. What are you seeing? What's your outlook?
Well, let me give you some numbers. I want to be realistic here. What we're seeing is that the consumer is going to have a bit of a hangover from last holiday season. And so what happened is during the pandemic, the consumer had a lot of money and they spent it. So sales were really high. Now, as things normalize somewhat, the comparisons aren't very good. And retailers, judge themselves on same-store sales, how they're doing this year versus last year at the same period. So how does holiday period this year compare to last? We got the third quarter numbers. Most retailers reported in the last 2 weeks, and the numbers were mostly negative. So Best Buy was down 7%, Lowe's down 7%, Nordstrom down 7%, Macy's down 7%, Kohl's down 5.5%, Target down 5%, Home Depot down 3.5%. So these are negative numbers. And retail sales for October were up only, 3% in total, 1.6% if you look at just core retailer. That is things that you buy, not services, things that you might buy for Christmas. And inflation's still running 3% year over year. So on an inflation-adjusted basis, sales are actually negative. Not only that, but most of the retailers who reported said they're not seeing great numbers in November. So holiday season's already started, and the numbers aren't happening yet. So I hate to say it, but I think we're going to eke out a small gain here, but it's actually be one of the slower holiday seasons when you look at it year over year that we've had in a very long time.
Jerry, I don't know, man. You have a lot of conviction and enthusiasm. I don't think you hate to say it. I think you're just coming to us with the facts, not the feelings. I want to go back to that.
That's the way it is.
There you go. I want to go back to that October retail report. So as you point out, overall, those core retail sales numbers, they were up, but you're really pointing to a double-digit decline in furniture sales, also a decline in department stores. Why are those two things so important when we see overall core retail sales up?
Well, again, retailers were up, but not by much. But you saw furniture, for example, was down almost 12%. What's going on? Look, we know interest rates are rising. That's a very interest-sensitive category. Also, building materials were down 6%. We saw bad numbers out of Lowe's just this week. Why? Because, again, we've got issues in the housing market. We all know that. And again, that is driven by the rising interest rates and the inflation that we've seen in housing prices and the fact the consumer is so squeezed. So none of this is a surprise. It's where the consumer is right now. Now, things will normalize. Maybe next year we can have different numbers and start putting the pandemic in the rearview mirror, but not yet. Now, people are still going out to eat. They're still buying concert tickets. They're still flying a lot. But most of the vaunted services increase we're hearing, where consumers are spending more on services, is actually on rent and on health care, again, pent up from the pandemic, not on discretionary items. So when it comes to clothing, like department stores, don't expect it to be good this year.
All right, understood. But it can't all be doom and gloom, Jerry. There has to be certainly certain parts of retail that you expect to have some better than expected performance or better performance than last year. Are there any areas that you see as a bright spot?
Great point. Necessities are still doing great. Again, during the pandemic, groceries sold well. Now we're continuing to see sustained growth out of Walmart. And so they were positive. They're one of the few retailers that were for the third quarter. TJX, again, a value-based retailer, did very well again, and I expect them to continue to do well. Dick's did better. They had reported very bad results, if you remember, for the second quarter. Their third quarter numbers were much better and, again, in positive territory. So people, have a little time. They're going out and they're doing activities with sporting goods activities. And Costco continues to be a strong performer. So value retailers, by and large, are going to continue to do great.
All right, what about electronics? I don't know if you're on Instagram, Jerry. I'll put on my Instagram. I actually got a birthday present, a PlayStation 5. I was very excited about it. Let's talk electronics, video games, computers, and also toys. Of course, the holiday gift-giving season is coming up. What's your outlook for those?
Well, we already know electronics is not good, and the numbers were poor in the retail sales report. Best Buy was down 7% and said it was going to be slow for the rest of the year. They did, by the way, you're right. They said video games were one of the categories that was up. So there is some strength. But when you look at some of the core appliances and electronics, computers, things like that, they have not been doing well. Toys did fantastic during the pandemic, and now they've got that hangover. So, they're not doing as well this year at all. In fact, they're negative for the year. And I expect that to continue. When kids were home and parents were home, they spent on toys like crazy. I mean, wildly, lots of toy sales. But now we're up against those numbers, and it's not going to look good. When we get to next year, we'll have a more level playing field, and we'll see how it is. But I would not expect it to be a good holiday season when you look at it year on year, which is how everyone talks about it.